So you guys see what's written on the board here? I lack/have no direction for my jiu-jitsu. This is commonly what is a big frustration in a lot of jiu-jitsu students' journey. If you're especially a newer white belt, or maybe you're still this emphatic blue belt, you haven't experienced a lack of direction yet because it's pretty obvious. You guys need to show up, you need to go to class, and you need to keep training. But eventually, at some point on your jiu-jitsu journey, you will either be questioning or you will feel like you have no direction and you're like, should I be focusing on my strengths? Should I be focusing on my weaknesses? Should I be going to this tournament? Should I be going to that tournament? Should I train this thing by that instructional? You basically are really questioning what you should be doing and really lacking direction and lacking a purpose for what you need to be doing in your jiu-jitsu. So in today's video, we're gonna go over actually how to develop direction in the way that is most helpful for me, and now what I've been able to teach to hundreds of students that has really helped them. How's it going, everyone? My name is Chasen Hill. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. I've been teaching and training jiu-jitsu now for over 14 years. If you guys like all things jiu-jitsu, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button down below, because a lot of us out there in the world don't feel comfortable or secure in their jiu-jitsu training by just the simple advice of keep showing up and don't worry about it. And you're tired of feeling like you have no direction, or you're really unsure about where you should be going in your jiu-jitsu journey, and you want to develop clarity, and you want to have a plan, and you want to have actual guidance and support. And this is definitely going to be a video that's going to help you guys out. So I have some good news for you guys. If you are that student that has no direction or is lacking direction, really what that tells me as a jiu-jitsu coach and someone that works with people on a regular basis means that you have no priorities, or you lack priorities, or you're questioning your priorities. Priorities are just like a ranking system. It's basically like first most important thing, second most important thing, third most important thing. Figuring out which things should become a priority in your jiu-jitsu training. Then it makes having direction and gaining that clarity much easier. That begs the question, what should I start to prioritize in my jiu-jitsu first? Chase, I believe you. You just said we should understand the priorities 1, 2, and 3, but this is often where I see students get the biggest hang up, or they actually feel the most resistance to wanting to develop a plan or wanting to develop a strategy. And the first thing is, what do I prioritize first? And the answer is very simple. I want to start to prioritize my jiu-jitsu problems. I want to start to identify, figure out what my jiu-jitsu problems are, why are they occurring, and start to solve them first. We all know that jiu-jitsu is about problem solving, but no one ever tells you guys what problems you're trying to solve or teaches you how to identify or prioritize which problems to solve first. Because I already know what you guys are saying. Well, Chase, I have millions of problems out there. I've got problems from all over the place. I don't know which ones to start solving first. Later on, I will show you guys my framework for actually how I break down which problems to solve first. Let's define what a jiu-jitsu problem is. Well, a jiu-jitsu problem is a situation that's difficult to deal with or control. The complete opposite of a jiu-jitsu strength. I'm not saying your strengths are bad and you guys shouldn't refine your strengths or develop them, but if you feel like you're lacking in priorities or you're lacking that guidance or direction, the easiest place to start, regardless, is to improve your problems. Ultimately, if you're in jiu-jitsu for like self-development and self-improvement, then you don't want to be deficient in any area of the art. Now, if you're a competition person and you're looking to compete at the world championship stage, it makes sense for you to focus on your strengths first, because you want to give more time and energy toward the things that you do well and figure out what you need to do well, because you need to impose and develop your game. You actually already have your priorities established. Eventually, I do encourage you at some point in your journey, and maybe if you want to take a break for competition or you want to switch up your training, go to figuring out what your problems are, what situations are difficult to deal with that you don't really have as great a control over, and that will also make you a better competitor. So step 1 to this process is actively finding your different problems. There is 2 different ways to identify or find your problems. Most students, 99% of the time, actually passively find their problems. Passively finding your problems is either relying on someone else to point them out to you, or you accidentally find them. For example, like the first day that you walk into the gym and you do a fundamentals or a basics class, The instructor is the one that's presenting the problem and the solution to you. So you are passively finding them because someone else is pointing them out and identifying them for you. Actively finding your problems means you actually place attention and figuring out your problems for yourself. So you're actively looking for them. You're actually showing up to training intently with a plan of figuring out which problems you need to focus on first. If you can become like a detective for your jiu-jitsu and start actively finding your problems, then you will have this amazing superpower for your jiu-jitsu career. So now we're gonna get into step number 2. So I think the easiest way to do this is to put this into a visual framework. You guys can reference this throughout your jiu-jitsu training. I wanna break down my problems into 2 types. I call the first type big picture. Big picture problems are going to be things that are more conceptual based in the sense of find difficult or challenging. So this would be the example of saying it's difficult to escape the mount position. If you find that challenging, that would be a big picture. Another thing would be like escaping side control or taking people down. So they're very broad, but they are big picture ideas. They're big picture concepts in jiu-jitsu, guard passing, guard retention, so on and so forth. The second type is going to be specific problems. And specific problems would also be known more as technical problems. If we took the big picture problem and we said that it's challenging or difficult to escape the mount, then if you went one layer deeper and said, well, why is it difficult to escape? Maybe you're doing the triangle and there's a specific counter that a certain training partner or individual always does to you that causes you a problem or causes you to fail at that triangle. Most of our jiu-jitsu techniques or concepts or principles that fall into. The first one is going to be defensive. The second one is offensive. Third one is going to be bottom. And then the fourth will be top. Pretty much all your jiu-jitsu techniques, concepts, or principles will fit into one of these categories. Obviously, very unique concepts like escapes are usually only done in the bottom positions. There are definitely some crossover, like there are defensive things that happen from the bottom and from the top. There are also offensive techniques that happen both from the bottom and the top, but you can pretty much categorize all your problems into one of these 4. Step number 4, or the last piece here, is now giving your priorities or giving you something to focus on with a reason. And the way that I like to do this is by understanding what we call the friction scale. Over here we have low friction, and over here we have high friction. Friction essentially just means difficulty to train. When something is very low friction, it means that it's much easier to do in training or practice in training because the skill requirement to be in those positions or to do those techniques just is less and it's easier to do. No one accidentally falls into a triangle choke very often on day 1 against skilled individuals. That takes time to build up and develop too. For example, submissions would be high friction. So as you guys can see, a lot of offense and the top position is very high friction. That is hard to do in jiu-jitsu. That means you have to develop some skills and ideas on how to do that, which is very challenging. The lowest friction areas are going to be defensive ideas, usually in the bottom position. How I recommend students start to prioritize which area to focus on is always going to be from low to high friction. That's the most realistic and the easiest path forward. How I recommend students do this is first find the big picture problems in defense. So you're trying to figure out what are these big picture areas that you have challenges or struggles with. Is it the mount? Is it the guard retention? Is it side control escapes? What is it? And then move to specific. Once you can go to specific, then you can start to figure out, okay, why is my mount escape sucking? What techniques, or why can my elbow escape not work? Why is my guard retention not good? And there are a bunch of different solutions to that problem of why you find it, but you have to identify the problem first, or else you're just randomly guessing. Next thing is then you would want to move into the high friction. And it's much easier to do high friction in the big picture. If you're trying to get too specific in the beginning, beginning of your career, that's very challenging to do. One of the things I see students make a futile mistake on, they just say, well, I want to pick triangles, and they just arbitrarily pick triangles because they like a triangle. That's a lot harder to do, in my opinion, than to get good at the offensive skill game of jiu-jitsu. And so the fourth and final thing, which I think is the hardest thing to do, is to do specific top positions. Usually with specific in the top position, that's the most friction possible. It requires the hardest skills like getting to the mount, getting to the side mount, getting to people's back, being able to choke them and finish from those positions. That is some of the hardest things that you guys can do in jiu-jitsu. If you're wanting to prioritize which problems to focus on first, here you go. Problem 1, find defensive big problems. Next thing, find the bottom, specific problems. Then once you get really good at finding those problems and figuring out the solution, move to offensive big picture problems, and then go to specific top problems. I guarantee you start to chip away at those problems and you will see your jiu-jitsu accelerate more than you ever did, and it's giving you the direction that you need to be heading in for your jiu-jitsu in the short and long term. So let's do a quick recap of everything that we need to do here. So step number 1, you want to start to find your problems. And problems are going to be things that are challenging or difficult for you to do in jiu-jitsu. That's how we define problems. Step number 2 is that you have to actively start finding problems instead of passively. So passively would be just allowing somebody else to find those problems for you, or you're just accidentally finding them, like only when they come up, or you magically come to the realization. Step number 3, you want to break down your problems into 2 types, right? We have big picture, and then we had specific. So you have big picture, we have specific. Big picture is general concepts, big ideas, big positions, whatever you want to call it. Specific, more technical and more minute details. Start focusing on big picture first, and then move to specific as you get better. Number 4, we had all the different positions, right? We had defense, we had offense, we had bottom, and then we had top. And so you want to do big picture of defensive and offensive, and then you want to move to specific where you go from bottom to top moving forward and prioritize. And then number 5, that we understood the difference between low versus high friction, right? So low friction means that it was much easier to do in training, and high friction means it was much harder to do in training. So you want to focus on finding your problems that are big picture, that are very low friction, and then you move to increasing the high friction. And that is actually how you guys start to prioritize which types of problems, and it starts to give you that direction. Remember, use your coaches, use your training partners once you've identified these problems and start finding the solutions to them. Hopefully this helps you guys out. If you guys are really liking this information and you feel like it's very beneficial, this is just a very small sliver of what I do in my online program. So I am enrolling new students right now. If you guys go down the link below, you can book a call straight with me and we can chat. I can give you a lot more helpful information just like this and help you start gaining that direction and gaining clarity for your jiu-jitsu. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.